Welcome to the Shiproom, where we learn from tech leaders at some of the world's most successful companies. I'm Brad Anderson. I'm the Vice President, Microsoft 365. Today I'm talking with the Information Security Director of St. Luke's University Health Network, David Finkelstein.
Thanks, Brad. Appreciate you having me on.
Your healthcare system is just massive. There's over 300 locations across a massive section of the East Coast. And the organization itself traces its origins back all the way to 1872. And all those decades of personal records, HIPAA compliance checks come down to you. What types of threats are you seeing that use the pandemic as a way to target people, and how are you working to counter those threats?
Early on in the pandemic, obviously our biggest thing that we had to take care of was PPE. What people were doing was they were sending in invoices to our financial side of the house to have them pay for things that we never even bought. The nice thing is that our organization has spent a significant amount of time on phishing scams and phishing attacks and things like that, so they caught it right away. There's two other big things that really come into play here is DDoS attacks. So when you've got 1,000, 2,000 people like we did go remote overnight, and obviously every piece of networking and every piece of hardware and every piece of stuff that we had in IT and across our clinical spaces went to those providers that were helping those patients. A lot of times hackers were going in there and pushing DDoS attacks to bring down those systems, bring down the EMRs, bring down the devices that they needed to use, a myriad of things from a DDoS attack perspective.
Welcome to the Shiproom. You're here with David Finkelstein. Who's this?
Anderson, you barnacle-faced sea-dog! You scrumpulent harbor poltroon! Oh, sorry. Is that too much? This here pirate filter I'm using is set to villainous. Let me adjust the settings a bit.
Is that better? You see, Brad.
David spent 12 years in the Army Signal Corps. They started in the 1860s.
To send messages to the battlefield by waving flags.
As you know, we pirates are lifelong learners.
And lately,
I've been studying the manual from the International Code of Signal Flags. And to help me prepare for the final exam, I'm going to show David a series of flags.
And David will tell me
if I'm using the right meaning. Here we go.
First up, I need some help steering this boat.
That's false.
That one be true.
What?
Next,
I have your mail.
I'm gonna say that's true.
Also true. This one says, can you check if there's a submarine under me?
That's false.
Tis false. How about this one? Does anyone know where I put my phone?
I will tell you this, it's probably something that our brigade commanders definitely want to have, but that one's false too.
This is a favorite of mine.
singles in your area are excited to meet you.
Well, maybe if you go to France, which is what that flag looks like, but that's false too.
Here's one I use all the time. Back up! I'm about to make something explode!
I'm gonna go with true just to make it fun.
And finally,
Nice boat. Is it new?
I'm gonna say false.
Ah, thank you, me matey. But before I set sail to me pottery class, I'll be having one last question for you.
you have a really deep background in security
And it'd be up to you.
to determine the safety and reliability of software on a regular basis.
How does you go about evaluating the software you be using in your organization?
There's a couple of ways that we do it internally. So one of the very first things is we really have to determine the scope. What are we trying to do within the organization? Once we've figured that out, I have a pretty robust vendor risk assessment process that we use where we put the vendor really through the ringer. One of the things that I've had a lot of feedback from the vendors is they feel like a lot of times they're going through an overall security audit, which is really what I do. We put them through that audit and we make sure that they meet our internal healthcare standards to make sure that they're not going to cause any major issues with our organization. Once we get that idea of how that works and whether or not it meets our requirements of what we have to do and they're secure, then we kind of take a deeper dive. We want to see if the product can do more than just one thing. Can it do multiple things? Can it build a platform that allows to use an example, scheduling, texting, moving through Epic data, getting information, moving things around. That way, it not only does it help with that particular niche, but it also allows all of our providers, all of our clinical staff to have a better, efficient workflow when they're dealing with patients.
You've made extensive use of Microsoft 365. What were you looking for, and what did you find in Microsoft 365 that led you down that path?
About 2 years ago, I kind of put myself on a journey. We had so many different point solutions, and point solutions are nice because they tackle a particular issue, but they get expensive and they add up. I mean, my budget was getting a little bit out of control. I didn't want to continue to push that to my CIO and say, oh, we got to pay this bill time and time and time again. Let me see if the Microsoft security tools can really do what I needed to do. So I took about 10 months working with various people in your organization, and what I decided on and what I saw was the fact that the Microsoft tools allow for integration of data. One of the biggest things that my CIO talk about all the time is the fact that we've got to be able to see the data. The data is what's going to allow us to do what we need to do. So in the point solution area, you got one interface or one dashboard that lets you see a particular area, like encryption or antivirus, but they don't talk to each other. They don't mesh, they don't talk to each other, they don't learn from each other, they don't get the data back and forth. You can't see the full picture. Implementing the Microsoft Security Suite, and we pretty much did the whole thing. We're at the last stage of implementation. We're putting in the MIP and the AIP, which is Advanced Information Protection, into the mix, and the amount of data that I get out of that, the ability for me to truly see my threat landscape across all of my endpoints, all of what my users are doing, has been staggering. So that was really the catalyst that pushed me over the edge to move to the Microsoft Suite. Was in the conversations, I was told that, and in the initial testing phases of things, we saw it almost instantaneously. I think about a month into our implementation, we had MCAS running, and one of my senior engineers, she was in my office probably 2 or 3 times a day. David, look at this, we can see this, now we can see this. And then what that allows us to do is have a different conversation with the business. It really allows us to say, here's what's actually happening, here's what that user is doing, or here's what this endpoint is doing. This is what we need to do to fix you, or fix your machine, or fix the user behavior. And now there's data that they can use to say, look, you went into this particular application, you did XYZ, we got to make sure you do this. And then it allows the operational cadence or an operational workflow to adjust to be much more efficient and also to be much more secure. I got to be honest with you, I've been doing this many years. This past years, obviously besides COVID hitting, has been some of the most fun I've had in security, putting in a set of security tools. Usually putting in security is just like, it's annoying and it's daunting and it's taxing. You're up 16 hours. I actually enjoyed hearing my staff come back to me and say, hey, we got this in. Okay, let me see all the data. And then you spend a lot of time looking at it. But again, it's fun to be able to see the full footprint of what you have to deal with from a security perspective.
You talk about expense, but it's even far more than just the expense of the licenses. The cost to try to stitch that all together and then keep it working, it's brittle.
And the big thing with it is that when you're dealing with point solutions, when you're dealing with that aspect, is you're always having to put another agent onto a system. With the Microsoft tool, it's one. And it's already embedded in the operating system. So all you're doing is deploying that information and getting that information back. So the performance of the endpoint, which in healthcare is absolutely critical. Those machines have to work on a dime because a patient's life is in jeopardy if that device isn't working. Having those security solutions behind that Win 10 operating system and being able to do all that stuff and not have to deploy so many agents and not have to deal with making exceptions here and making exceptions there and tweaking it and opening up our systems to risks that we're not able to see has been just a lot of fun.
Now, as someone who spent a lot of time in the healthcare industry, I bet you've seen some pretty unexpected things. So I'm going to read you a lot of side effects And I want you to tell me, is it a real warning on popular medication or just something that the Shiproom writers invented when they were calling in on a sick on a Friday?
Okay, this is gonna be fun.
Purple sweat.
I'm gonna say fake. Purple sweat is, because that scares me, but I don't, yeah.
Bones that glow under a black light.
I'm gonna say that's real.
Decreased height.
I know that that's an issue as you age. However, I'm gonna say no.
Tongue multiplication.
Tongue multiplication? I'm gonna say that's real.
3-pack abs.
I don't know if that's a medical condition or the fact that you need to go to the gym more.
Missing fingerprints.
I'm gonna say fake.
I read in an interview that you said you saw Teams as a way to maximize productivity and minimize risk. Can you tell us, how does Teams help you limit security threats?
The security behind Teams is built in, but there's also a significant amount of governance that can be applied to Teams based upon the organization that you're in. So obviously healthcare is really regulated about sharing PHI and sharing PII, and so it really allows us to put a significant amount of governance around that to say, all right, internally you can have those conversations back and forth. But the beauty of it is with my 365 security suite, I can see all of that data. I know where all that data lives. I know what people are putting up in there. I can have the conversation with somebody and say, you might not want to put that data in that particular Teams channel. Let's make it private, make it more secure, put certain levels of protection on there, only allow certain people in there. And then I can put alerting mechanisms through MCAS and through some of the other tools that I've got that I can watch over that and make sure that they're not sharing that outside. That's the other thing. If it's identifiable information that's confidential to the organization and things that can't go to a personal computer or a personal email, Teams allows me to have that control and that governance over it. So even though they may collaborate with somebody outside of the network, that person can't pull that information down. That person can't hold on to that information. That's one of the nice things about Teams. It allows our organization to become very, very collaborative, but allow me to sleep at night knowing that that information is not going to go anywhere where it's not supposed to go. The other piece of it is it allows us to find everybody that's in our network almost instantaneously, especially going remote over the COVID crisis. The number one thing that has really allowed us to be successful was our Teams adoption, was using Teams as our way to communicate. Email is great, and I've said this multiple times to multiple people. Email is great when you're trying to send something to somebody as a way to mark an event or mark a communication. Hey, I just want to let you know, here are all the action items that we've got to do. Teams really became the way for us that we were able to communicate and not feel like we were remote.
While we've been talking, our very own Shiproom AI has been analyzing our conversation and has come up with the 12 most relevant questions based upon our discussion. Now, you make your own furniture. Do you have a whole workshop full of tools or just one very reliable Allen wrench?
I wish I just had one Allen wrench that I could use. I have a couple of rooms full of tools that I use.
What's the next most famous food in Philadelphia after cheesesteak?
Pretzel.
Now, you also do artistic wood burning. How often have you accidentally burned down a chair you just finished building?
I'll be honest with you, I have set things on fire. I've had put down the burning tool and walked away for a little bit and come back, and the piece of wood that I built is half on fire.
Back in the military, what was the most creative insult you ever heard from a drill sergeant?
A lot of them are not very PC.
How many apples a day would it take to keep an entire hospital away?
All of them.
Well, thanks for hanging out here in the Shiproom with us, David. Now, before we go, if people wanted to learn more about you or your organization, where would they go?
They can go to LinkedIn, or they can go to the St. Luke's webpage, sluhn.org.
Thanks, David, and thanks for everyone for watching. We'll see you the next time. Official state beverage is milk.
I think that's New Jersey.
Home of the world's largest furry convention.
That's got to be PA.
The setting of more Soprano episodes than any other state.
New Jersey.
Leads the country in pretzel bakeries and sausage production.
That's PA, baby.
That's PA.